you've gone from exhibiting in a gym that you're working at part-time to being approached by the top 14 publishers in the industry, and then the US has now got in contact and you've got a second book deal.
Let me break this down to you as to how I get paid this 6 figures.
Who is Dapo?
It's not widely known. I didn't see myself as a children's book illustrator. I never really thought that's what I was going to do. I don't think you know who you are. I think you know who you aren't. Yeah, I'm living on £500 a month and I'm still paying bills. They didn't know how I was living back then.
No one ever does.
When I was 33, coming up to 35, you know the age thing, you start thinking, where am I? What do I want to do? I'm still working part-time in the gym. What am I qualified for? Never had that for, you know? I want him to get married, get a real job.
So seeing Black illustrators in the space is what encouraged you to make that shift?
That was a pivotal moment.
You've had a lot of success in a short space of time. For you, what would you say all of this is for?
My big quest, and it's an ongoing quest at every level, is to demystify this industry that we're in, like rip the freaking blinds off and show people what's happening behind the scenes. How can you get a 6-figure sum and not be grinning from ear to ear? I'll tell you how. Illustrators doing picture books, 18 spreads and above, should be paid a minimum of
Welcome back to Enjoy the Collective, the home of independent creatives seeking the real insights into the creative industry and what it takes to work for yourself. I'm your host, Marseille, and whether you're freelancing, studying, or thinking about it, consider this your all-access pass behind the scenes to mastering your own creative practice. So around here, we want to see creatives not only survive, but actually thrive. And we believe we can do that within community together. And if you're nodding along, then head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/enjoy the collective, and join the collective. Okay, I know I say this a lot, and that I'm always excited to introduce this next guest. But this next guest, excited doesn't even begin to describe how I feel to introduce them to you. I feel so honored and privileged to be able to share this person's story. I think there is no real introduction I can give except to say that this author illustrator, multi-award winning author illustrator, has made a huge, beyond splash, tidal wave in the publishing industry. And without further ado, I introduce to you Dapo Adeola. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad we get to kind of sit down and chop it up. I feel like you've done a lot of panels, right? And a few.
Yeah.
And like interviews and stuff.
Yeah.
How like personal do you get when you do them? Or do you keep it more industry?
It depends. It really just depends. Like if the conversation is going that way, I'm not afraid to be personal. But yeah, it depends. It just depends on what question's being asked.
Okay.
Yeah, because some things require an answer that's going to be a bit personal.
Yeah.
And others require a formulaic industry answer.
Cool. Okay. I just wanted to check because obviously this is for the podcast, the first one-on-one. And so I'm hoping to like in the conversation go like deeper into like you as a person, if you don't mind.
Let's go.
Yeah, because I just feel like I'm more interested in the people behind what we do. So outside of what you do as an award-winning illustrator, come on. Award-winning illustrator, who is Dapo?
A very complicated human being, but not overly complicated. Just honestly, just the same as everyone else, trying to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? I don't think, And do you know why the answer's so kind of blurry? Because I am literally still trying to figure it out. Like I'm in my 4th decade of life and a month in, and it's a very, very introspective time. So I'm like, who was Dapo? Who is Dapo? Do you know what I mean? It's just all ticking around in my head. So I can't even give like a clear answer to that.
Do you feel the shift of moving from one decade to another? Because they talk like, whenever like people are talking, it's always like, you know, especially for like women, they always talk about like your 30s where you really like get to know yourself. But do you feel that shift of moving from your 20s to your 30s to now in your 40s?
I'm still kind of in just literally a month into my 40s. So I'm looking for the transition. I'm like, something's supposed to happen. I'm supposed to transcend, but no, hasn't happened. But I definitely felt a shift going into from my 20s into my 30s. I felt more self-assured. I knew who I wasn't, because I have a thing. I don't think you know who you are. I think you know who you aren't.
Yeah.
And I feel like who you are is the constant shift. It's constantly moving. So I kind of knew who I wasn't going into my 30s. It made me a lot more confident. There's a thing like I feel like if I had come into my career, for example, in my 20s, probably would have pissed it all away. Like I would have struggled to focus. I would have had no direction. I wouldn't have appreciated what was happening the way that I did when I came in my 30s, because I had already had that moment going through education in my 20s. I couldn't focus it. Couldn't focus. I had no direction. I had all the ability. If you read all my reports coming home, that's what it says. So much ability, so much potential, doesn't apply himself, distracts everyone else.
That's their favorite phrase?
Well, I think in my case,
right.
It was true.
Okay.
Like it was 100, I would put my hands up. I just couldn't focus. I always felt like I was thinking about things 100 times quicker than what we were being given.
Right.
So put it this way, I learned more outside than I did in education.
Is this a higher education, like
higher
university?
Education. Yeah.
And what did you study?
To be very fair to myself, the establishment I studied was Croydon College. It no longer, I don't think it exists anymore, but I went to Croydon College and I studied a degree in graphic design and communication.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, graphic design and communication, or graphic design and advertising, I think it was at the time. And it wasn't what I wanted to do, but it was what I thought I needed to do to get a job in design that wouldn't get me laughed at when I'm telling someone what I do for a living.
Okay, so what did you want to do?
Illustration.
Oh,
okay. I had no idea that, it was so weird to say this, but I didn't see it as somewhere I belonged. Like I just, come on, before like the internet, I'm old, by the way. Like I said, I'm 40, so like,
okay, you're not
I'm
old.
not old, I'm of age.
Yes,
but
yes.
like, when we were coming up, when I was in my 20s, the internet wasn't what it was now.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
It was just beginning. So there was no Facebook. We just had High Five. And
High Five. Did you have
High
Bebo?
Five, Bebo, we had all those things, but they didn't have the connectedness that we have now. I didn't know that Black illustrators were a thing. I didn't know Black artists were a thing. My art education started in earnest when Facebook hit.
Right.
And MySpace actually, when MySpace hit, and I started to see professionals get on that platform. And I first saw that there were more professionals than they looked different to what I envisioned. I always envisioned like middle-aged, quite plump white men with glasses and they're balding. Because that's what I saw, right? So once MySpace hit, I started seeing people who were like, 5 years older than me, 6, 7 years older than me, who were in the industry doing what I wanted to do. And then it was a matter of time, literally a small matter of time, before I started seeing Black people doing what I wanted to do. And these times I'm coming into my mid-20s, and that's what allowed me to make the decision in my mid-20s to change job roles. I changed from a full-time job to a part-time job to facilitate me to now pursue illustration and teach myself what it really means.
So seeing Black illustrators in the space is what encouraged you to make that shift?
Massively.
Right.
But it was more seeing illustrators that didn't look like what I thought an illustrator looked like, right? From all different backgrounds. Because I'm a nerd. Like, I get really nerdy about things that I'm interested in. So if I find an illustrator whose work I like, I want to know all about them. I want to know about how they got there, what their journey is, what's their favorite drink, what do they like? Do you know what I mean? Right, who are you? So once I'm learning all that stuff, I'm seeing parallels between myself and that person. So that kind of made me believe it was possible. And then it was only a matter of time after discovering a few people that I started to see Black artists. And unfortunately, the vast majority of them, if not all of them, were from the US. Like, there was hardly anyone from these shores, like 10, 15 years ago, that was online, prominently known for doing illustration.
Did that discourage you in any way in terms of feeling that it was attainable?
It didn't. It didn't discourage me. Well, no, it did actually. Let me be very, very honest. It did discourage me in a way, in feeling it was an attainable thing on these shores. Right. So my thought process was get really good at drawing, put it out online,
go to the
and
US.
Someone in the US is going to see it, and then you're going to find your way over there, and you're going to, do the thing. Like, the internet makes it possible. It will happen. That was my thing. Just keep plugging away at it. And I made small connections here and there. around 2010, because I went part-time in 2009.
Okay.
So I made small connections between then and 2010, here and there, working for a few people. But it still wasn't enough to break through. Like the saying I had was I kept moving sideways, occasionally forward, but never backwards. So that's what kept me at it, because I wasn't moving backwards. I didn't feel like I was moving backwards. I feel like for a long period of time, I'd be shuffling like a crab sideways. And then
how long a time before,
step.
I guess, you were starting to get recognized for your work? So you said, was it 2011?
2009, I went
2009, you went
part-time.
part-time.
And I started to, because prior to how I used to draw before, I was more of a fan of art. So like my work was like riffing off of other artists whose work I really liked. And it wasn't until, this whole thing about your style, I was trying to figure out my style, right? And it wasn't until I'd say about 2010 that I started to really hone in on style that I liked.
Right.
And that's when I sort of became recognized for that type of work that I was doing. Still wasn't true to what I would end up doing, but it's an ongoing journey. But that was when I was like, oh, this is cool. I like this. Do you get me? I'm going to do more of this. And that was 2010, 2011. 2011 was one of the worst years I can remember, because so many things, like that was that sideways year. I'd call it sideways. It almost felt backwards at some points. Like things just were not giving, like it wasn't happening. Nothing was moving. I was putting work out into the world.
When you say putting work out, like what platforms were you using at that time?
The platforms that were available.
Was that like Facebook?
Facebook. I think MySpace was dying a death by then. So it was mostly Facebook. And I was reluctant to get on Instagram because when it first opened up, it was the photographer's app. It wasn't really an art app back then. I just got on Twitter in 2011. I think, no, that was 2012. Yeah, 2012 I got on Twitter, but I was still, and Twitter and Instagram were quite young then, very young then. So like they still weren't art spaces. They weren't design and art spaces. They were just banter spaces and photography spaces. So I didn't see the potential in them until a couple of years afterwards. But in 2011, a few personal things happened that shifted everything backwards. Like I said, a couple of years prior, I had gone part-time. I was earning a full-time wage. And I went to earning less than half the money I was making, and I had to make up the rest with artwork. And as you probably know, as a freelancer, work doesn't always come in, and it didn't come in regularly. So some months I make it up, other months I'm living on beans. I'm just chilling, not beans exactly, but I'm just chilling. Like I'm just,
humble diet.
Right. And, a thing that my friends would say to me, even now they say it, they're like, they didn't know how I was living back then. Because it just wasn't clear. And obviously, I think that's a two-way thing. One, it's how I manage things and how I kind of live and all that. But then it's also because people assume that if you're living bad, it has to show on you. Do you know what I mean? And because they didn't see it on me, I'm living on £500 a month and I'm still paying bills. So they didn't really put two and two together. But anyway, that was then 2011. And then 2012, that was the shift. 2012, I think, was the pivotal shift that really showed me what was possible. Prior to 2012, I had been taking on commissions from people, and that was when I would get money. And they would come in, say on average, and annually I'd probably get like commission to do about 12 pieces, maybe once a month I'd get commission. Is
that friends and family, or is it getting broader than that at this point?
It's broader, but it's still people that know you, or people that know people that know you kind
still
of thing.
In the network.
It's still in that, the artist friend network. And it's not quite brands or companies, you know what I'm saying? So I would get those, charge my money, wasn't a lot I was charging, and, do my thing. And then 2012, I took part, in 2011 actually, I covered for my friend at the Urban Art Fair in Brixton because he had booked a space. It's an outdoor art fair.
No, I know, it's usually on like Josephine Avenue.
It's always there, yep. So I covered his slot because he couldn't make it, so I covered a day for him because it was raining. And on that day, I sold, I think, for the first time I sold the piece of art, like just sold it to random people, just walk by. Like I sold about 2 or 3 pieces. And I was like, okay, there's something here. So the next year we went halves and we took a double plot together. And I showed up with all my work and I sold everything. Like I sold out. That was a pivotal moment.
Okay.
Like, because it got to a point, there was 3 of us that like put money in on the spot. And of the 3 of us, the other 2 were helping me bag up my stuff because we just couldn't meet the demand on time, and then everything just sold. I went home empty-handed, with money in that, but like went
What
home.
were you drawing at this time? Was it like characters largely, or like?
It was my own original characters.
Okay.
I had this thing going on with Japanese artwork, like Japanese ink artwork, and I was trying to sort of bring that style into my own stuff. So I had these Chinese zodiac characters that I drew with ink and brush,
Right.
and it just really hit. Like it's a mixture. It was a mixture of stencil graffiti and the ink brushwork, and it's really hit. Like it took off. And it was what would then go on to become children's book characters. I was drawing kids. I had this thing with kids riding giant animals.
Okay.
Like, so I had this little girl blowing bubbles on the back of a tortoise, for example, in an undersea environment. Like just these kind of fantastical kind of things were going on. And they shifted, they sold, we did really well. And then later on that year, that's like summertime. So later on that year, I put on my 2012. I put on my first show in my gym I worked in. So this was the thing.
That's crazy.
Right. So my thing I had then was like looking at unconventional spaces to put art in. If you get the footfall in the space, you can sell work to people. So in my gym, I'd worked in the gym on reception at that point 3 years, right? And I'm swiping in like close to 1,000 people a day, right? I know them, they know me, they know I'm drawing on the desk, they see me. So I'm like, I asked my manager at the time, I'm like, would you be up for me using the cafe area after hours, after it's closed, because it closes at 5 every day, to put on a little show? I can get some friends to do some singing, performing, put some artwork up, have some food, people can buy some artwork. He was like, yeah, cool. So I did it. Like we absolutely smashed it. Like proper setup. Like, them little nights that you get, little open mic night.
Yeah.
Them things there, had a couple people come through and perform. They did their thing. People, little comedy set. And then afterwards, people mingled and bought artwork. Again, sold mad artwork. It was me and two of my friends trusted me with their work, put it up. And then afterwards, my boss was so cool. He let me use the wall that lines the entrance to the changing rooms as a gallery for a month. So I had the work up for a month there.
Wow.
And then it just shifted. And where I worked at the time, the gym was in a business park area. So people from Facebook, Debenhams, their head offices were there. They would all come to the gym and they would see the work and buy the work and then put it up in their office, buy it for friends and family. So that was 2012. I did a second show in 2013. By 2015, I had a permanent gallery in the gym on that wall. That was there for 3 years.
That's
so
crazy.
During 2012 and 2016, I became known as the artist in that area. So I would do pop-ups in their buildings as well, like have a little pop-up stand at Facebook, selling artwork, like free food at Facebook, man, I was living. So just selling artwork to all the members, and they just knew. And then I would get bigger commissions as well from those people for their friends and family and all that stuff. So that was just me trying to be an entrepreneur and enterprise.
You're not trying. At this point, you are being an entrepreneur for sure.
It's definitely one of my brighter ideas. It was just looking at the footfall. It's like a free footfall. You get 1,000 people a day coming into this place. Some of them are gonna like, oh, all I need is 10 of them. I just need 10 people. Do you know what I'm saying? It worked. And it allowed me to shorten my hours at the gym, which was pivotal again in me becoming an illustrator. It allowed me to shorten my hours at the gym so I could follow through with illustration. So I shifted from 2012 from working 5 days a week at the gym to 2016 working 2 days a week at the gym.
And you were still allowed to keep that gallery set
Still
up?
allowed to keep that gallery until, I'm going to say this on your podcast, until the manager whose idea it was for me to make the gallery permanent started to see that I wasn't working as many hours anymore. And her words exactly were, because she tried to get rid of me. It was so wild.
I'm not surprised.
And I was the best receptionist there. You've known me, you know me in the industry. I make it a point to be the best at whatever it is that I try to do. Like I make myself an indispensable asset wherever you put me. And it was the same at my reception job. So even though I'm only working a couple of hours, a couple of days a week, whenever anyone wasn't there, I get called in. Like I'm the guy that covers shifts. I'm the guy that, someone's flopped, I'm gonna come in and pick up that shift.
Right.
And I was indispensable as such. We had a high turnover of staff on reception because it wasn't the best working environment. But I could tolerate the working environment because I was only there 2 days a week. Yeah. And I set my hours perfectly. I'd go in when all the other members of staff are still asleep and open the gym. My hours, I start at 5:30 in the morning, right? I finish just after midday.
Yeah.
So I only
the
have to
rest of the
tolerate
day.
the other members of staff
For a couple hours.
for a couple of hours, right? It's
Yeah.
perfect. And I still had the rest of the day to do art.
Yeah.
So it was perfect. She didn't like that.
Yeah, the thing is, when you said, oh, my manager let me spit, I was thinking, wow, like, I was about to say shout out to that manager, but...
So shout outs to that manager because it was different managers. So the manager who allowed me to first do the thing in 2012, brilliant guy, Ben, shout out to him, still love him, great guy. And then we changed managers twice. Matthew let me do it again, and then we changed to another person who I'm not going to name. They know who they are, but I'm not going to name them. And their idea was to make it permanent because I felt like they were trying to score points. And I asked, I was like, are you sure? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
But then they didn't think it would become what it became. It facilitated me to work less. So I love going to the gym. So like there are days where they're suffering for staff. I can't cover that shift, but I can come and work out because it's my day. I don't have to answer to you. It's my time.
That.
She did not like seeing me
in your free time, but not working. Yeah.
And that's, for me, that's wickedness in the soul.
No,
because why is that a problem, right? So we had a situation where another line manager took over for somebody while they were pregnant. And that person initially, as soon as they started, they had been told to get rid of me. So they cut my days to 1 day a week. At first I thought, and then after a while I was like, nah, you know what? You're taking me off 1 day here. So I'm going to put that 1 day into artwork and make this work for me. And again, started to work. But then the high staff turnover started to happen. And he would call me in to cover shifts. And he realized, this is the best member of staff I have. And he was caught between a pillar and a hard place, right? So he only covered for a year. After he was about to leave, he told me the truth of the whole situation. And it turned out that he had been told to make sure that he got rid of me. But then he couldn't because every time a member of staff would leave,
you would be there.
I would be there to cover his back, right? So, and he told me exactly what was said. What was said was that the gym I was getting more out of the gym than the gym was getting out of me, even though I was working the hours that I was allocated. So I was like, what more can I give you? Do you know what I'm saying?
There's something about those early jobs, like whether it's like retail or like fast food, where like, dare you be happy, dare you be successful, because I don't know, I don't want to be this person, but I found in my experience that the managers, when I was in those spaces, were the most bitter, I found.
Tell it like it is. They weren't happy people, because you can't be a happy person and do that. Like I was fortunate to have good managers, so I knew what one looked like. This particular person, I don't think that they were a happy person. I think they'd convinced themselves that they were. They just
But you see it when you put your energy into sabotaging other people or trying to stop the growth or progression of somebody else, then you can't be happy or satisfied in and within of yourself. It's not possible. How can you be thriving in your own life and then use energy to
put a thumb over someone else's growth? It's
just not. I don't think that's possible.
And with this particular person, it's because the growth wasn't going in the direction that they wanted. I was, choosing my own path, and it was just a weird thing.
And too much autonomy. I don't think managers like that at all. At all.
And what made it doubly worse was I was loved by the members of the gym as well.
Even
like
worse?
I still if I'm not on shift, if something goes wrong, Dapo wouldn't do that. Dapo knows what I like. She hated hearing that. It was wild.
So in the wound, that's why.
It was wild. And I'm blessed. My life is charmed. I just be going about my business, and then I'm finding all of this stuff out, and I'm just like, oh, really? So I took my work down, because I'm not putting my work in a space like that. So I took my work down, and luckily, a few things had happened between putting the work up and taking it down. 2015, I had my first solo show at the Ritzy in Brixton. So
Is that the one I came?
No. You came a couple of years later, 2018.
Yeah. Okay.
So 2015 was my first show at the Ritzy, and how that came about. In 2014, I hung up some work because they had a space, and my friend Terrence, who I did the Urban Art Fair with, he was like, oh, can I share the space with Daps? He can hang up some of his work as well. So I hung up some work, and they were like, people kept coming in and asking him, whose work is this? Can we buy it? Can we buy it? So they offered me the space the year after to just hang up all my work. So I was like, okay, how can we do this thing? So I got my friends from, I don't know if you know these guys, DFT Printing.
No.
My boys, they run a print studio. Shout out to them, DFT. They're amazing. So back then they had just started out. and they were working from the basement of a barbershop back then. Now they've got their whole studio.
Crazy.
So we were all just starting out, trying to figure things out. So I was like, all right, look, how much would it cost me to hire you guys to do some live screen printing at the event? We made some exclusive prints that people can only get that night.
I love a live screen printing.
And everyone did as well, because people were watching them do the thing. And then we had music, we had a photographer, we had the whole setup, and the thing sold out. Like, it sold out. I sold so much work in that night. That was their best event opening that they'd had. The bar sold out. It was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. It was
That's
packed.
amazing.
And a couple of people that knew people that worked in publishing invited those people, and that's the first time they saw my work.
Okay.
I didn't have a website. I still don't have a website.
I realized that when I was looking for your bio.
Yeah, no, I still don't have a website. But they were, people were like, apparently I didn't know this. Unbeknownst to me, conversations had started around my work in publishing in 2015, and I didn't know this, but they couldn't find my website, so they didn't go any further. My thing is, it wasn't the time.
Or you should have just made a website. We'll move on.
No. I think it wasn't the time.
Okay.
Because I don't think I was in the right space. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I really believe everything in its time. I don't think anything that's meant for you misses. I really don't.
I do believe that.
Yeah. So for me at the time, Nathan, who is the author of the series I'm most known for, Look Up, him and I had been friends for about 5 years. We'd worked together in 2010. He came to me at the end of my show, literally at the end of the show. He came late, came into the show. He was like, Daps, no shade. He came late and he was like, Daps, I've got this idea for a children's book. I think you'd be dope at designing the character. I'm in my I'll try anything once space. Do you know what I mean? I was like, all right, cool, bring it. So he gave me a little description of the character. I went away, started working my magic, did my thing. 2016, he showed my first early drawings to who is now the lady who's now my agent, Sally Ann. And she was like, can I get him into the office and have a conversation? So I came in, had the conversation with Sally Ann. She's like, I want to represent you. I did not know anything about anything. I'm like, okay. All right, again, try anything once kind of thing. So she told me she's an agent. My only question was, do I have to pay you anything?
Yeah.
She was like, no. If you get paid, I get paid. Right. I said, okay. Signed the thing, got the representation. And I'm learning later on that that's crazy.
Yeah, no, that's
because it doesn't happen like that, right? Yeah. So got the representation, got an agent now. So we have to now type. So
it's 2016?
2016.
Okay.
So we have to type. We missed, because you know how the book fairs are each year. We missed Frankfurt Book Fair. So I signed it in summer and we missed Frankfurt. But if I had, if I get my drawings together, so we'd missed Frankfurt and I had to get drawings ready for Bologna 2017. Right. So got my head down, did the drawings, sent them off. And it's wild because 2016 was another downer year. It wasn't because I had a high in 2015. First solo show, sold out. Did a second solo show in 2016. Got an agent in 2016, but 2016 solo show didn't hit the same way as 2015's one. So the high wasn't the same. Things weren't balancing out. I was in a bit of a mid situation. At the time I was coming into 2016, I was 33, coming up to 35. You know the age thing, you start thinking, where am I? What do I want to do? I'm still working part-time in the gym. My prospects for another job, even though I'm capable, but they're looking at your CV. So it's showing you that I've been working in this gym for years, going on almost a decade. What am I qualified for? The same job elsewhere? I'm not going to get the perks of working the hours I want. I'm going to have to prove myself all over again in a job that I think I'm better than, if I'm going to be honest. So anyway, there was that. Then I signed to the agent. Again, I don't know what that means. I'm just like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. Signed to her, got the artwork ready. 2017, she went to Bologna and everything changed. So that's when I met Nightsoul. They had approached me just after Sally Ann had signed me. They approached me and asked me about some of my other characters.
Did you come and meet them in Benkenbo? In East, like they're Liverpool Street?
No, I met them at the Welcome building. It was Dee and Amy. I met at the Welcome building, Welcome Trust. On Euston Road. No. Yeah, so this is like August, September 2017, around that time.
I think I had just met them. I met them in August 2017, like just to do branding. And so like, I didn't know what they were talking about. Just like, you ever setting up a publisher? Okay. Sounds nice.
No, I was the same. I was like, oh, publisher, okay. But I just like their vibe, they just started and they were really enthusiastic. Trying to really get in there. And, you know, again, honestly, if I hadn't already been signed with Puffin, I would have gone with them. Like, because I was in my try anything once kind of situation. But we signed with Puffin, and then I had other people hitting me up to represent me as an agent, because another thing happened at that time, 2017, crazy year. I always hold my hat off to that year. Earlier that year, somebody had reached out to me, a lovely journalist finding in Victoria's Sanusi. If she ever sees this, big up Victoria, changed my life. She reached out to me to ask me to be in this BuzzFeed article.
I was wondering where this was coming in, because I was like, I remember this. Right. Yeah, go ahead.
So this BuzzFeed article with 31 Black British artists that you need to be looking out for. Yeah. And I said, again, trying it once. I was just like, all right, cool, you know. And this is around like March, April. So I answered a few questions, and she did a write-up about me. And the picture was with myself and Rocket. And this came out, I forgot I did this, and it came out in October 2017. And just a next wave of like followers and people hitting me up and publishers hitting me up. This BuzzFeed article went all the way to America. And I got my second book deal off the back of that. Wow. Like, they hit me up, they like, love your work, you've got this text, who's your agent, blah, blah, blah. So
at this time, what are you thinking? Because you've gone from exhibiting in a gym that you're working at part-time to being approached by the top 14 publishers in the industry, and then the US has now got in contact and you've got a second book deal. So you've got an agent and 2 book deals.
So I'm not normal. So my thought process was, I'm constantly thinking about how can we turn this into a career. So I was hyped, and then the hype would just die straight away, because I'm like, okay, don't get gassed. What's next? Like I've learned that this is a bit of a survival mode for a long time. So like I'm trying to think about what's next. So my thing with that was, I've got an agent, she can handle all the paperwork and stuff. Just let me know what to expect work-wise. And then we got to back into 2017. I was thinking to myself, okay, I've got 2 book deals, but this is not a career. I can't quit my part-time job.
So you're still working part-time?
I'm still working in the gym, so I'm like, I can't quit my part-time job until I know that this is going to be a thing.
Regular.
Now, unbeknownst to me, there was a rumor going around. I knew the rumor, but it wasn't, you know, we weren't sure.
It wasn't realized,
The gym was closing down.
Right.
Permanently. And what this company, there's another word I was going to use, but what this company likes to do is they keep those kind of things a secret from their employees, because they don't want us to leave before they can fire us or make us redundant, right? Which I think is a messed up thing to do. So I get why they did it, but I think it's a very messed up thing to do, because if this is my livelihood, this is what's paying my bills, I need to secure another job. You know. So anyway, and I was on a what's that part-time 0-hour contract?
Yeah, 0 contract hours.
Right. So I'm not. They don't owe me anything. The most I got, because I'd worked for so long at the gym, I got like about maybe a month's full-time pay. That's the most I got. Cool. No worries. But I had signed the Lookup book deal. I think I got my first advance. Yeah, I got my first advance just before we were, you know, and then we got to 2018, and remember we took 1 book deal. We got 14 offers. That left 13 other publishers who wanted to work with me. The emails, February 2018 was another madness. The emails just kept coming, offers coming, job. I got offered books that I now see on shelves, and I'm like, oh, that was supposed to be me. I could have done that, but you know, I said no. But like, just
why
offers,
did you say no?
They just weren't appealing to me.
Okay.
Like, they were a bit cliche, and I'm not going to name which books they were.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
They were a bit cliche. But you know, they were books that fit the Black narrative, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything with this. That I want to, you know, do different things, something different. I've been a fan of children's illustration for years. I know what the range is. Don't just offer me this. Do you know what I mean? So I took on a few gigs, and I was like, okay, this is definitely enough to warrant a career. We got to the end of February, the gym shut down permanently. And like I said, nothing that's meant for me misses me. That was closed. That chapter was officially over. But this chapter had properly began in earnest. And in 2018...
Wait, so what was it that made you feel that actually this is something that can be a career and an actual door to walk through?
Those 2 things.
Just the
literally
just the
door closing and realizing that there's no going back to that.
Okay.
And then the amount of work that came through.
Right.
Like and also because, you know, we get our contracts, we know when the books are coming out. We know how long the contract is going to go for. And I was like, okay, at the time I had 3 book series.
Okay.
And that's like 5 years worth of work. And if I cannot get another job if I can't line up another job within those 5 years, something's wrong.
Yeah,
Do you get what I'm saying? So, I had that. And then what else happened? I also started I was approached by someone who worked at Hachette in relation to them wanting to do an event to talk about the state of the industry. At the time, I was unpublished, right? I didn't get published till 2019. This is 2018.
Right.
So at the time, there were only, I think, 2, don't quote me on this, but this is what I was told. There were only 2 working illustrators, black illustrators in children's publishing in the UK at the time.
Okay.
One of them was a gentleman called Ken Wilson-Matz, and the other was apparently myself, even though I was unpublished, right?
Okay.
Even though I had no books. So, but that was because the buzz had started at that time. So people were using my name in those discussions, and I'm like, why? I don't have any books out. So I started to do some digging. I started to find out a few bits and pieces. I don't know if you caught this, but I put out some tweets in 2018 asking if there are any other black illustrators, black British illustrators, or black British authors.
Oh, is this when you started the thread?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is before I started the thread.
Oh, okay.
So initially, the thread started off as me putting out a tweet asking, are there any black British illustrators out there? What's going on?
Yeah.
Like, because like man's on his own, like, do you know what I mean? So I got a massive response to that thread. And then after that thread, I think probably late 2018, early 2019, I put that thread out, the other thread, which is showing all the black British illustrators that I've come across. And like, so many people exist. Why are we not, why is there not a thing that shows you who they all are? That thread was massive. Publishers are quite lazy, as you know, so everybody jumped onto that thread.
100% lazy.
Right, everybody jumped onto that thread to harvest it. They did what I didn't mind. It is what it is. They harvested it. People got work. It was all cool. But then what started to happen was I started to become associated with that conversation, which wasn't a bad thing, but I was really determined to have it on my terms.
Yeah.
So one of the great moments that happened in 2019, just before publication, about 3-4 months before publication, was when I had the publisher Macmillan that I was working with. They called me into a meeting and they were the first publisher that I worked with that done this. They were like, what's your experience been like so far as a black man in this industry?
Wow.
And that led, mad, didn't it? So that led to a conversation about my experience and what I hope to do. And they were like, we're going to get behind you, we'll help you, and we'll support you. And that led to that first event that I had. I don't know if you were at it.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there, I remember.
Was Shantae on the panel?
On the panel. Shantae was on the panel. So we had the first Black British illustrators meet up at their publishing house. It was a panel conversation, Q&A, and then it was a portfolio review as well, and then just a mingle session. And that was amazing. Like, the turnout was nuts. We had 30 spaces. We filled that. We doubled that. It was just nuts. And then we have now an ongoing Facebook group to help develop the talent. Because that was the thing that I noticed was missing. Like, the community aspect of things wasn't there. Like, we have these people who fancy themselves as authors and illustrators who just work separately. Occasionally they'll network, but it's never in a way that's conducive to improving their craft. It's just buddy kind of. And I'm very much about honing your skills and improving your craft. So that was what the thing was. It was a place where we could share resources that would hopefully help us be able to improve,
Because this is very interesting.
We can
I don't know
keep
if
going.
I've ever heard
this story.
Where were you?
I think you might check your Twitter. You might have been on that list.
I feel like you probably were.
Because you know why? Nah, but do you know what it was? If you weren't on it, people were putting people's names on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if you popped up, bro.
I think you probably did, to be honest. It's crazy because like you're dropping these like moments, and it's like I'm trying to like go back to be like, like the Macmillan thing I remember really clearly.
Yeah.
The Brixton event, the 2018 one, I remember really clearly. And it's so funny because these were all like events that like at the time obviously Nights Of was like really new, and there was only 3 of us. And so there were multiple events happening on the same night. And so like each one of us were like, sent out to whatever. So the Brixton one was like, I'm local. I can just go there. That worked great. And then I remember being sent to the Macmillan one. And again, it's remembering that I was new to the industry. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what I'm doing here.
See, I didn't know you with the Brixton one, but you knew Priscilla because I was dating Priscilla at the time. So she was like, I know, how'd you know? I was like,
No, but I came up to you and I introduced myself. And
Right.
I said, "Oh, I'm
Yeah,
from
I'm
Lights
from
Off."
Lights Off. And I didn't, and then you were talking to her, so I was like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? So yeah, nah. So it was a time. It was a real time.
You was creating a Facebook group to hone the skills and work on your craft.
And the idea behind the Facebook group was not so much, it was like a boot camp I was trying to facilitate, like a place where you can come, you can trade resources, you can buddy up and grow and learn together. We can do things like live drawing classes, just anything to upskill in this thing, because I know that that's a very important thing. Like, you can't rest on your laurels if you're saying you want to join the creative industry. Right?
The thing like that I really admire about you is the fact that you entered this space that you didn't really know anything about, and immediately it's like, let's get to work. You're identifying what the problems are, and you're like, well, I can do something about it. So, you know, you've done this thread, you've created this Facebook group, you're speaking out on like some of the issues that are within the industry, and you're being proactive. One of the things that I found really frustrating about the industry is like, there was a lot of conversations because there's a lot of confusion. You know, like, what do we do about diversity, and how do we, you know, become allies? And I'm like, why is this like really hard for you? Especially like you're a London-based publisher. And I just, you know, at the beginning, like I was like, okay, like maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm missing like what is really the pain point. But after being in the industry for like 5 years, I'm like, it's really just laziness. You want someone to handhold you, spoon feed you.
You want someone to gift you the solution.
Yeah. And you and Nathan at that time were that gift, in terms of like, you came in, it was like, oh my goodness, you're here, you've landed on the table.
And I would say myself more so than Nathan, because Nathan was very good at just like, he does many other things, so he would have something else to go off and do, whereas this was my thing. Right. So, and I also made it really easy for some people to use me as a vehicle for their change. But don't get it twisted, I taxed them. Like, I was going to say, like, how did you feel about that? I taxed them. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing for you, but you're going to do this thing for me, right? Or you're going to do this thing for me first, then I'm going to do this thing for you. And that has served me quite well. Like, you know, it has to be that give and take. Yeah. Right? Because I'm not here to be the face of diversity. I don't care for that at all. One of the reasons why the thread existed, one of the reasons why the search for Black illustrators took place, was because I was determined to not be the only person sitting at the table. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I felt like a part of the reason, and you know, this might be a bit shady or whatever, but I just really felt like a part of the reason why the current situation had existed for as long as it had done was because people were happy to be
gatekeeping.
Not so much gatekeeping, but just existing at the table, not going either way, but just self-interest. That's it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, it can't exist like that. Nothing grows. You know, I very much, and again, not to sound corny, but I very much have an abundant spirit. Like, I'm like, there's plenty of room for everybody. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, and that has to reflect on how I move. You know, and I really believe that is the reason why I'm able to have the career I have, because I don't hold on too tightly to anything like it's just me and I'm the only one and blah, blah, blah. Nah, fam.
There's plenty.
Come through, make us all better, do what you can do. Do you get what I'm saying?
I think that was one of the things I enjoyed in my role, which was like discovering that there was this issue of, you know, being able to find diverse creatives, find Black illustrators. I was like, I know plenty. Like, they're not in publishing, but I know plenty. And at the time, like, you know, KO were more than happy for me to like do my thing. Bring illustrators in, bring people in who didn't consider a career in publishing, and still don't. They came in, did the books,
their thing, and then they went off to their respective
to do the things that they enjoy doing. But in that, like, I was just like, I find it bizarre that we're having this conversation when we're in London, we're in a digital age. I just found it very bizarre, and I was like, well, you know, here they are. And
I did see that it was a two-sided problem.
Okay, tell me.
I'm saying two-sided, it was multiple sided, but the two sides that I recognized the most was that primarily the industry was at fault because it had spent so much time ostracizing people, making them feel like they don't belong, whether on purpose or inadvertently. It was making us feel like we didn't belong. So we chose other other styles of illustration, other avenues of illustration that may not necessarily be considered suitable for book illustration, for children's book illustration.
Yeah.
Right? That's one. And then two, because we've been ostracized from this space for so long, and because we don't really see ourselves belonging in it, we don't know how it works. Do you get what I'm saying? We can't connect the dots. We can't imagine ourselves in a space that we've been told we don't belong in. That's hard. I couldn't do that. Because another secret that people don't know, and I talk about it now, but it's not widely known, I didn't see myself as a children's book illustrator. I never really thought that's what I was going to do. Right. I was going to make a book, but I was going to make it on my terms, my style. If kids bought it, great. If adults bought it, great. But Nathan was the one that thought, okay, you can do this thing. Because I love your work. And have a go. And then I'm like, oh, I can do this. If he hadn't said that, maybe if that BuzzFeed article went out and someone else approached me, I might have gone that route. Right. But I don't think it would be what it is now, you know?
I think another side of that argument is just people not knowing that career path exists.
It's available, yeah.
That industry is available, and how to kind of get into it, in all honesty. It's almost like you're kind of cherry picked out. But you don't know how to get in. We
know now the layout, Cambridge, all those establishments that have illustration degrees, people are cherry picked from those places. It's done in a manner that keeps the art form of children's book illustration quite highbrow. And my big quest, and it's an ongoing quest at every level, is to demystify this industry that we're in. Rip the freaking blinds off and show people what's happening behind the scenes. And I encourage everybody to do the same thing. That's been my thing from day one, to try and just share. I overshare sometimes on Twitter. I talk about all the negatives bits as well as the positives. Because I got a new deal about a month ago, and it was quite a high sum. It was a 6-figure sum. And everybody's thing initially was like, oh my God, 6 figures, my junior corner. I'm like, brother, let me break this down to you as to how I get paid this 6-figure sum and over how many years this contract is going to last for. I'll tell you when I'm seeing that last check, and it ain't going to be for a while. Do you get what I'm saying? So people understanding how that works, it gives them an understanding of the industry that we're in. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Yeah. A lot of smoke and mirrors. How can you get a 6-figure sum and not be grinning from ear to ear? I'll tell you how. When it's chopped up and paid over a period of time that makes 6 figures a lot less than 6 figures. Do you get what I'm saying? So all those things are things that aren't shared. Pay. It's not talked about. How much money we get. And when it is talked about, you're met with weird confrontation and projections from people. There's a conversation we had on Twitter about how illustrators doing picture books, 18 spreads and above, should be paid a minimum of 10 grand. Because that's what I got more than that for my first book. But I've seen that as a baseline sum. I personally, unless it's a personal project that I really like and there are other factors at play, I'm not going below that for a picture book of that magnitude, right? Because of the amount of work that's needed.
Yeah.
I put that out in the tweet. Pushback I got was nuts. There were people that had been illustrators for a decade, and they were like, I'm only just now getting my first fee of that amount. I feel like you're misinforming people. I said, well, I didn't say this on Twitter because this would have caused a war.
Oh, of course.
My thing was, maybe you need to sack your agent, because how can you be in a decade that I've only been in for a year? You've been there for almost a decade.
You're not getting this.
And you ain't getting this, and I've got more than this already. And this is my baseline. And you're only just now getting what I call my baseline. That's nuts. And I know that smaller publishers can't necessarily pay out like that, right? But if you're making that known that you're a smaller publisher, this is what you can afford. And also maybe as a compensation for that, you can give more on the royalty, right? People have a choice to make.
Okay, so how long have you been in the industry now? How long is that?
Okay, so it's weird. So I count all the years, even the pre-published years, right? Yeah. So I would say I've been in the industry since 2018 proper. I've been published since 2019, so I've been published for 4 years. First of all, why do you say that? Because I think it's the same reason. Why do you say that? Does it feel longer?
It feels longer. I can't believe that it was 2019. I in my mind, it happened before that.
So in my mind, I'm trying to compute the fact that it was 2018 I came in, unpublished, and 2019 I got published, because it feels like I've been there for a decade. All the things that have happened in those 4 years, I recounted them just before my birthday and I nearly lost my mind. I had to sit down because it's just so many things. I haven't stopped once. Like it's just been going, going, going. I have 14 books on the market.
That's
like
insane.
It's nuts. I'm going to take a break at 20, like a proper break, but 14 books on the market. And a couple of other books that I've worked on, but that I don't claim them as mine because they're other people's projects. But yeah.
That's, 14 books is crazy. That kind of threw me off a little bit, to be honest. What has been some of the highlights of that journey?
Oh, man.
Highlights, pain points.
I'm going to hit you with the highlights. Obviously, first book publication in the UK, because I can't dismiss my US fam. I had a book published in the US in April 2019. Shout out to Lamar. He's the author of the book. Brilliant book series, The Last Day of Summer. And then my first UK publication, my picture book illustrated debut was Look Up, which was bananas. Absolutely bananas, like a big year. We had a huge year. We hit the ground running. Our first event was Hay Festival, which is one of the biggest festivals in the world for children's books. We hit the ground running. We smashed it at every turn. We were doing events left, right, and center. The book was and the book is still loved today as if it just came out the other day. And knowing what I know about the lifespan of a children's picture book, that's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal achievement. So the publication of Look Up, massive highlight. Winning the following year, was it 2020? Yeah, winning the Waterstones Children's Book Prize in 2020 was a humongous highlight. That was life-changing. To have this book that came out, did all these things, to go on and win the award. And the Waterstones, the nature of that award is it's an award that's picked by the Waterstones booksellers, the people who actually engage with the people that buy your books. It's not got the usual kind of industry stuff behind it. So that was very validating for me. And then, going on to make my author debut the following year with Hey You, that remains till now one of the biggest things that I think I've done in this industry, because the nature of that book, it was a project. It wasn't just a book. It was my author debut, but it was the illustrator debut of a few people, and it was a joint project with 18 other Black illustrators from around the world. And what that book has gone on to do, like, we talk about not knowing how things are going to go. I had no idea. That book is a hit in Brazil of all places because of the situation that they have around race. It's actually making its way into Brazilian schools and being given to kids in those schools. It's the bestseller in that country. It's doing well. Like, it's nuts.
That's amazing.
Listen,
Do you take a moment and just really deep it? And what does that look like?
It looks like a semi-panic attack sometimes because there's so much to take in. And again, it's just from not knowing what's going to happen. Hey You, the resale of Hey You, it set a record at Puffin. It's the highest ever amount for a single picture book. I'm not going to tell you what the amount was, but it was dumb. It resold for 5 times what they paid for it. And it's gone on to clear out. It's doing so well. It made illustrators of several people. It made global names of some people as well. It's just done so well. And then that was 2021. Then fast forward to 2022, the same book goes on to win me a massive award at the British Book Award. It won the Best Illustrated Picture Book Award, which made a winner of myself as an author and the 18 illustrators who all worked on it. And that same year, I won at the same award ceremony, I won the Illustrator of the Year award, which was, I think, the first time they had created the award. So I was the first winner, which is a record
I didn't
somewhere.
know that. That's crazy.
It's nuts. So I won
really
that.
hope you're deep in this stuff.
That was a forced moment of okay, my G, sit down.
Yeah.
Relax, sit down, take this in, because this is nuts. And it threw me, though, because there was a moment where I was like, that's your illustrator debut. And Hey You is such an emotional book for me because it was written from a really emotional moment, with George Floyd and all the stuff that happened in 2020. That was the catalyst behind writing that book. So I'm like, your author debut has won this massive award. Are you setting a precedence that you're going to struggle to follow up on? So I just had to do a lot of work to put all of that to the back and just say to myself, okay, you know what? Go back to why you did stuff to begin with. You did it for you. You did it because you wanted to do it. You did it because you loved it. You did it because you like it. It's all coming from that place. Just keep working from that place. Ignore awards. They're lovely, they're great. It's nice to be validated. You know, who doesn't like that? But do not build anything around it. Do you know what I mean? Like, leave it. If you never win again, so be it. Just make good books.
Still an amazing
Achievement.
accomplishment. Exactly.
Yeah.
What do your friends and family think? Like, do they get it? Are they like, oh?
My family don't. I'm Nigerian. We're very weird around stuff until it starts to make buku money, big money. That's when we get it. But we don't really champion the creative arts like the way we should, even though we're insanely good at it.
Yeah.
Like in any creative industry, there's a Nigerian sitting at the top somewhere, right?
I think every guest we've had on from each different industry has been of Nigerian descent,
yeah.
I believe.
There's a Nigerian there somewhere, right? And that's even on the podcast, but then even in the industries they're in, at the top end of the something, there's a Nigerian somewhere. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in we get in. That's what we do. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we are good at it too. You know, so how we are when it comes to the creative arts is weird. It's something I hope to see change in my lifetime, but it's really, really funny. And as a result, like the certain generations of my family appreciate what I do. Okay. They are my younger siblings, my younger niece, my younger cousins. They get what I do. They appreciate it. They love it. They see the impact because they grew up in a different generation. The older generations, in terms of like parents and aunties and uncles, they don't quite get it. They might see me pop up on BBC and they're like, oh, I saw that on the BBC. Yes, okay, you know, big moves. And they think you're making bigger money moves than you're actually making just because you're on the BBC. Calm in it. No long thing. I'll take it in it. But then my nan is the one person that has always gotten it because she didn't link it to success. She linked it to my happiness. And that made all the difference because there are times when that's what I needed. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that made all the difference. My nan always got it. It's so wild. My nan's 8 years old, you know. She's 8 years old and she's always gotten it because I think knowing what I know now, she's not my biological nan. She's my mum's older cousin, but she fulfills the role of nan in my life. And she came into my life when I was about 12 and you know, she's an adult coming into a 12-year-old's life. So she's looking at me with adult eyes and she's seeing things that I don't even know about myself as a 12-year-old. So as a 12-year-old, my thing was, I didn't grow up in a particularly great environment. So I hid, like I would always hide. I'd go into my room and I'd pull out my sketchbook and I'd just be doing my little doodles and my drawings, or I'd be sitting at the table just reading a book or and she noticed this stuff and she knows that this is what makes me happy. So all my life, it's always been, she champions that. Do you get me? Whether on purpose or not, she champions it. And as I got older, the way she championed it changed. It really became about what makes me happy. Like, so she'd have like, you know, this is a very personal thing. So she'd have like, my mom would be like, oh, you know, I was like, I think I was about, at the time, it was 2015, I was probably about 32 at the time. And there's this weird discussion. I'm not saying this to sort of champion men, and I don't do men versus women. That's not my narrative at all. I just talk about what I've experienced, right? I know that women get the raw end of the stick when it comes to marriage and stuff, but there is pressure that exists for men that we don't talk about. Yeah, and I was facing that pressure as a 30-something-year-old man who was unmarried and with no kids. So my mum's thing was, oh, when will you marry? When will you marry? So she went to my nan. She knows how close we are. And she had that conversation with my nan. And she put this, I call it a false hat, because really and truly, if you talk to me, I'm not backwards at being forwards. I'll tell you what my plans are for my life, right? But if my plans aren't satisfactory to you, and I'm not saying what you want to hear, you're going to go to someone else and manipulate it so that you can hear what you want to hear. And that's what was done. She went to my nan. She don't know my nan. She knows we're close, but she don't know what that means. So she went to my nan and she was like, I'm worried about that boy, you know. I want him to get married, get a real job, all that talk, yeah? Real job, innit? Matting. Real job, all that talk. And my nan was like, all right, cool, I'll talk to him for you, because that's what she wanted. So before the conversation, I'll never forget, before the conversation happened, this was a month before my first solo show in the Ritzy. My nan calls me, she's like, oh, can we meet up and talk? So I went over, she's like, oh, first of all, your mum came over and she told me all this stuff. And before I talk to you about any of the stuff that she said, I just want you to know that I want you to do whatever makes you happy. And that was a big thing. Do you get me? And then she told me what my mum said. And she asked me what my plans were. And I told her, when I tell you, Marcy, every single thing I said I was going to do, I have done and then some. And the crazy thing about me is, I ain't gonna lie, when I was talking back then, there was a lot of talking in it. Do you get me? I was like, oh, let me be published, I want to be an artist, I want to be real. I was talking in it because I had to believe my own steam.
Yeah.
But the thing about me that's cool is that I don't just talk for talking's sake. If I can't do it today, I'm gonna figure out how to do it tomorrow. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and every single thing I said I've done, I was going to do, I have done, and then some. You know, so.
What did she say about that? Like, is she?
She's always, my nan's always singing my praises. Like, she's.
No, you can continue.
Yeah, she's always singing my praises. She's always singing my praises. She remembers every conversation. She's been there she was at my 2015 show. That was the first time that she saw my work and everything properly up on walls and stuff. So she's been there at the key stages of the journey. She's seen it all, you know.
So for her, it's just like, you're happy, so I'm happy.
You're happy and you're successful and you're doing what you said you were gonna do. Like, so no one can come to my nan and chat left, innit? They can't talk left about me, innit? She would just be like, whatever. Like, you know, obviously she's on my neck now about kids and stuff as well. But it's a different way. She's 80. She wants to be here to see them, and I want her to be here to see them if they're supposed to come. Do you get what I'm saying? But it's not the same. I know that that's part of my happiness.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? Even though I'm 50-50 with kids, I'm like, if I have them, I have them. If I don't, I don't. But I know with her, it's not coming from that societal, cultural pressure place, you know? Yeah.
What would you say, like, okay, maybe not what would you say, but like, do you have any tips for anyone like trying to navigate this industry or this space as an illustrator? Maybe not necessarily publishing, but as an illustrator.
Okay, so number one tip I'm gonna give you, and I know this might sound like a soundbite or a gas thing, but like, you are the prize. You get what I'm saying? Like, you are the prize. Like, don't compromise your style unless you want to. Do not compromise, because one thing I hate people doing, the vast majority of people that commission illustration don't know anything about it. They assume that what we can do can be turned on and off, right? So do not compromise your style. It's hard, I know, it's really difficult, but it's more headache and more stress than it's worth when you compromise your style and then you're on a job that you hate that kills your love for what you do, right? So that's the thing, try and avoid that if possible. I think I have a rule, and it's a bit counterintuitive, but I still stand by it. What you do in your spare time as a freelancer determines to a large extent what you do on job as well.
Right.
Like, so if your thing in your spare time is not to hone your skills, not to learn your business, to just chill and faff about, you'll be stuck in the same lane for a very, very long time. I believe that. I'm not saying to go out and overwork yourself, definitely. It's a balance you got to attain. But what you do in your spare time as a freelancer determines to a large extent what you do on job. Ideally, what you should want is a situation where what you do in your spare time feeds into your job. Your passions feed into your work. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying make your passions into work. Like, there are illustrators that I know that love skating, for example. None of them are in this room right now. And from a tip I could give maybe would be to feed into that culture, that because skating has its own culture. Feed that into the work that you do. You know, do work that reflects the culture that you love, and then it's just never work. Do you know what I mean? It's just you're feeding your passion from two ends. You know, those are tips that I would give. Learn the industry. Like, learn. Like, I'll be 100 with you. Like, I'm saying this on the podcast, whatever. I'm not the best illustrator. I am not the best illustrator. I'm not even the best in my actual specific field. I'm good at what I do. I'm getting better at what I do, but I am not the best. What I am good at, what my real skill is planning. I'm good at planning. Like, I'm good at planning. I project manage. Like, what people don't know, and I work with good teams, like really good teams, but what people don't know, because of the nature of our industry, they take it for granted how much of me is actually in the project. Even the Joyful, the anthology I put together, that was a lot me. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, scouting for the talent, working with the talent, giving people tips. Dorcas, you had Dorcas on the show. Dorcas, I really enjoyed working with her on her submission as well. I sat down, I did draw-overs, I talked about how this can be this and this and this, and she took it in. I wore a designer's hat for that project. I wore an editor's hat for that project. Do you get what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't know that happens. Even with Lookup, how we work with Lookup is unconventional. Normally, author does the writing, illustrator gets the text, and you just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
How we work is we have a second round of editing that happens with me, where I get the text and then I edit it visually.
Wow.
And I make suggestions. What I try to do is not make a suggestion that's going to change the story. Keep the story, but lose this, lose that, add this, add that. Recent book, Speak Up. Little changes that have a ripple effect. The librarian, the book is about a library. We have a librarian in the book, and the librarian, I made the librarian someone I know.
Yeah, I messaged her.
Right.
Because I was like, that's amazing.
Right.
Like, did you know? And
she knew. I asked her permission. Obviously, I'm gonna do a likeness in the book. So we made the librarian into someone that I know because I knew that it would have a genuine and authentic touch to it. That was a really nice. That was a really nice touch. I can't even lie. It hit, man. It hit. Just to wind things down, I mean, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really feel like we could go on for hours because there's so much that you have to say and share. Hey, 3, 4, 5. But to wind down this one, what would you say? You've had a lot of success in a short space of time. I know that you're really vocal on social issues on Twitter, and I love seeing like how actionable you are about the issues that you face and that you see other illustrators facing. So for you, what would you say all of this is for? This career, this opportunity you've been given, this platform that you have, what is it all for and what's next for you? Okay, so I can answer the literal term in terms of what it's all for. Like, make so much money, have some security in life, live a good life. That's it.
That's fine.
In terms of the legacy, I am freaked out by the fact that I think I have a legacy already, which is nuts. But I'm keen to see what that looks like in 10 years' time. Just get me when I'm in my 50s or whatever. I'm keen to see what that looks like looking back. So yeah, it's just to sort of make a change while I'm here, man. Make a lasting impression of some kind, whether good. Just make a lasting impression of some kind. In terms of what's next, I have a book series coming out. I'm writing for an older age demographic. I'm writing roughly 25 to 30,000 words per book.
Wow.
Over a 3, maybe 5 book series.
Wow.
It's called Admire and the Dragon, and I get to draw a dragon. I was going to draw a dragon. Nobody wrote one for me, so I wrote one for myself.
Amazing.
So that's coming.
So you're author illustrator on this?
Illustrator, and a few picture books as an author illustrator as well. So basically, my author illustrator career is coming through next, which I'm really, really looking forward to. And also, my author career is something I'm keen to develop as well. I want to write for other people to illustrate. Like, illustrators who I love their work, and I would love for some of them to illustrate some of my books. I'm getting my itch here.
I love that. That's amazing. That's amazing. Dapo, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming down. Thank you for squeezing us in.
No, thank you for having me, man. Thank you for squeezing me in. Like,
it's true. Yeah, last recording of the day, and yes, this is hungry and tired. But I'm glad that we had time for this conversation because one, it's much needed, just to hear like the real story behind. Because I think everyone can look at the success and be like, yeah, amazing. Like, no, you hustled. Like, you actually hustled.
People glamorize it to a point, and I'm like, it's not my story. But yeah.
No, thank you so much. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to subscribe for more insightful content. For insights and resources on related topics, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/Enjoy the Collective. We're continually crafting tools to help you and your creative business to thrive. If you're catching us on platforms like Spotify, Apple, etc., be sure to like. Your ratings and feedback truly make a difference in helping us to grow. Finally, a heartfelt thank you to the creatives who made this season possible. Braid Films, Woomzum, with music by Tracy Soothe. This podcast was recorded at Us 2 Studios in London. Thank you for tuning in, and remember to always enjoy.